Good evening and welcome to In the Spotlight with Tabitha. We are on the heels of Black History Month coming up February the 1st. And with that in mind, I have a very special guest on this evening. Before Joe Biden spoke at the commencement services over South Carolina State University, before we ever celebrated the Orange Bowl or the bowl over at South Carolina State, before Congressman Jim Clyburn received his diploma that he worked so hard for the very first time, being able to walk across the stage 54 years ago next month on February the 8th we will be celebrating a horrific day in history. It was the Orangeburg Massacre. And we have on our panel this evening, very honored to have Mayor Gadson and his son Shanty Gadson, who are going to give us a little bit of history. Mr. Gadson, first of all, I'd like to thank you so much for joining me this evening in the spotlight. And I'm going to give you the floor to go into the history around the Orangeburg Massacre. So many people are not aware of this. I know until I moved to the South, I was not aware of this history. And there's so many stories that are missing in our history. And I was so compelled by this story that I really wanted to have you on for February. And I'm honored that you're here, sir. And if you could give us a little feel about how it felt back then in 1968 in the civil rights protests and what went on at South Carolina State.
Sure, good to be with you. The Orangeburg Massacre is possibly one of the most underreported massacres in the history of the United States. And I suspect it was because it occurred on a Black campus in the South. Unlike today, back in 1968 in South Carolina, white folks felt threatened when Black folk assembled. When I went to State College in '67, I was a little country boy from rural Charleston, South Carolina. I had no real sense of what the civil rights movement was about. No more than when John Kennedy was assassinated. I remember watching that whole story from the assassination to the funeral, but I still had no sense of what he meant to civil rights and what he was trying to do about civil rights. And so when I arrived on campus, and there were a few of us from Charleston that sort of clicked and started to run together. And we started attending this meeting of a group called SNCC. And as we attended the meetings, and our eyes became a little open to real atrocities that were being perpetuated on Blacks. And because in rural South Carolina, as I suspect, and the rest of America, we knew white folks were there, but they weren't there. And we knew our place, we knew a line, and we knew we'd enforce that line. So we didn't do anything to upset the wagon. And so, life went on, and life went on. But when I got to started attending these SNCC meetings,
and SNCC was the Student
Nonviolence Coordinating Committee, and my eyes began to open up to what was happening. And I became angry. I got angry. Came up. You're an angry black man.
Yeah.
And when the issue of the Orangeburg bowling alley came up, I never bowled a day in my life. But I knew that what was going on in that bowling alley was wrong. And there was a history with the bowling alley. And I think we were determined that it was going to end. That they were going to either allow blacks to bowl in there or they were going to close it down. And the way the thing went down, we assembled in the parking lot because the bowling alley was like in one of those strip mall. We assembled in the parking lot. And as we assembled in the parking lot, that allowed a few of us to be able to slip into the bowling alley. And if you could see the hate in those white people and the hate in them as we entered that bowling alley, I mean, we knew that something had to change. And so we left and we just mingled in the parking lot, and let them know that we were there.
And this is a
Cool.
couple days before the massacre.
This was the first night. This was the Monday night.
Okay, okay.
This was a Monday night. And we just mingled in the parking lot, let them know that we were there protesting the segregation of this bowling alley. And back in those days, we didn't riot. The riots occurred when they came out there with the fire trucks and started hosing us down and beating us up and we started running for our lives. That's when the riots occurred. And so when they did that night, we
So you were actually beaten before
Yeah.
the massacre, before you were shot, you were beaten by the police.
I was beaten I was beaten that night. I was
Oh, goodness.
beaten that night, and we scrambled down the street and they got back on campus. That was on Monday night, and that Tuesday night we went back again, and
And it was the police that beat y'all that Monday night.
yes, the policemen.
Police beat y'all.
The fire trucks hosed us down.
Okay.
They had the fire trucks out there hosing us down, and that allowed the policemen to be able to come in and beat us because the hoses knocked us down. And
Oh,
so
my gosh.
and so the second night we sort of braced ourselves, but they came up with the same thing again. We thought maybe the second night would be different. And the same thing happened again. And that night there was some violence as we went down the street, some breaking glasses and that kind of thing. And I think that night we were just fed up. And
Was
so
it all white, Mr. Gadson? Was it all white?
yeah,
Okay.
it was all white, all white, firemen, all white policemen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were beaten by the police 2 nights in a row.
No, the second night we didn't give them a chance to beat us the first
Okay.
night. When we saw the fire truck starting to assemble,
Y'all
we
knew.
left. We left that second night. They give them a chance to hold it down that second night. But most of us so bad to beat, and we figured we better get out of here. You know. And
Wow.
most of us were beaten that first night. So the second night, we figured we better get out of here before the same thing happened. And that Wednesday night, President Nance warned us, he told us not to leave the campus. Because things had just gotten so bad, things were just so hot in downtown. So he told us not to leave the campus.
President of South Carolina State.
Yeah, President Nance. And so that night, there were a lot of students, a lot of kids that mingled that night with a lot of Claflin students.
Yeah.
And we just sort of
And let's tell the audience about so they know where Claflin is. Claflin is connected to South Carolina State and another one of our HBCUs in South Carolina. I just want to make sure the audience knows
yeah.
Claflin's connection. Okay.
Yeah, the only thing separate us was a chain link fence. And that night we just sort of laid low and threw bricks and rocks at the cars that lived on the street. But we didn't leave the campus. But we still wanted them to know that we were there. And so that night there wasn't much going on, no more than throwing the rocks and the stuff at the cars as they went on the street.
And this is night number 2 or 3.
This is Wednesday night.
Okay.
This is night number 3.
Night number 3.
And Thursday night, and I guess this thing just started from a little crowd that started about dust off. And a small group started forming at the edge of the campus, in front of the campus. And the crowd just began to move. And my dorm was Roman Hall. That was the first dorm that you got to as you came on the campus through the main gate. And so most of us that live in that dorm, we were right there with the steps watching the crowd assemble. And so curiosity got the best of most of us to be down at you. And that's when the bonfire started. They started a bonfire and they stole anything that we could on the bonfire. And they started assembling the high patrolmen.
Is this up to the night of the shooting?
Yeah, this night of shooting. Okay. They started assembling across the street. There's a railroad, so there's the street that runs down in front of the campus that divides right at you as you get to the campus. They were on the railroad, they were on the other side of the railroad track to start with. And as the bonfire grew, they came across the track. But now little we know is that as they were coming across the track, they had some of them going up the sides on the Claflin sides and some going up the sides on the other side of the our campus. And as the bonfire grew and all we did was at that point was we were yelling at the ones that we could see in the front of us.
The police.
The high patrolmen. And we were pretty hostile. But never did I see anybody throwing anything. And I think most of us were careful enough not to throw anything because we knew that the ones that we saw in the front of us, we knew that they were ready to shoot.
And for the past 54 years, the story has been the police fired on that unarmed student demonstration, peaceful demonstration, because they said that someone threw an object at the highway patrol. So that's what he was talking about.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
At my position in the crowd, I couldn't see the front line of the crowd, but I could see any kind of commotion going on up there. I couldn't see, somebody threw something, but I could pretty well see any commotion going on. And the only thing I saw was when the line started to move back. Now, I don't know whether that was when somebody threw something and everybody just anticipated, the front of the line anticipated that they were going to shoot.
And it's still unclear to this day as to if anything was was
Was
thrown,
thrown.
or just the police didn't want to just start shooting.
I never saw anybody.
Yeah,
I never saw anybody do anything.
Do anything. Yeah, that's yeah.
I never saw anybody do anything.
Well, before we break to a commercial, I just want to remind our audience that we are talking to Mayor Gadson, and he is giving us the history of the Orangeburg Massacre that has not been mentioned in history like it should have. Just as important as Emmett Till's story, this story definitely should have been told. And he is up to the night of the shooting. 3 men were shot and killed, 28 wounded, and Mayor Gadson still has that bullet in his body to this day. After our commercial break, we're going to come back and let him finish up about the shooting, um, go into the history on the same man that was shot, um, within the police, the echoes today, having no real regard for African American life, turned around and was elected mayor of Hollywood, South Carolina in 1989, and held that office for 14 years, the longest running mayor in Hollywood, South Carolina. I'm telling you, that's a testimony right there. What a mighty God we serve. So we're going to break for a commercial, and we will be right back after this commercial message.
Are you ready to buy a new home or refinance a home? Call Quentin Johnson at Homestar Financial. Homestar Financial offers competitive rates for home improvement, new construction, FHA, VA, conventional, and USDA loans. Take advantage of today's low interest rates by being a smart and prepared buyer. Get pre-approved today and find out just how much house you can afford. Call Quentin Johnson at Homestar Financial, 704-526-4007, extension 50306. Homestar Financial makes home ownership a reality. In MLS 161685, equal housing lender.
And welcome back to In the Spotlight. This evening we have Mayor Gadson and Shanti Gadson on. And before we left for commercial break, Mr. Gadson was sharing with us right up to the night of the shooting in Orangeburg. Mr. Gadson?
Yes. Right.
Go ahead and finish telling us.
Oh.
We're up to the night of the shooting, so we want to get to the night of the shooting and what happened and how you still have that bullet in your body, and then we want to go into also letting the audience know how far you have come and go talk a little bit about your role as mayor.
And like I said that night, I want to reiterate that I never saw anybody do anything. And when the shooting started, when I realized that they were shooting, when I saw the push coming from the front, the shooting had already started. That's why the push was coming from the front. The shooting had already started, and all I could hear was hit the ground, hit the ground, hit the ground. And somebody in the crowd that had that kind of foresight to say, well, hit the ground, because that's what he could do. Because you could hear the bullets going over your head, going over your head.
Wow.
And by the time I could hit the ground, I was hit. And
where were you hit at? Where were you hit?
I was hit in the buttock.
Okay.
And you could hear the people on the side of you screaming and crying, the girls screaming, and even you could hear the kids up in the dorm screaming. That bullets were hitting the side of buildings up there, and so by the time the shooting was over, and I was able to get up to my dormitory, like I said, which is the first dormitory as you come into the main gate, and I got up to the steps of the dorm, and I started talking to one of my homeboys, and he said, "Herbert, he's man, you shot, Because I felt when the thing hit me, and he said, you shot," and that's when I realized that I had been shot.
Oh wow.
Because I tell you, the adrenaline that was I was throwing on that out in that open field. All I felt was when I felt something hit me, but I didn't realize I was shot.
Now, were you able to go to the hospital in that time? It's
Well,
1968. So did you guys
yeah,
go to the hospital, and how did they classify this later? Like the next day, did the news cover this? What were they calling it?
they took us. They took us first to the infirmary,
Okay.
and from there they I can't remember. They took us by ambulance or cars or whatever. They took us over to what they call the Orangeburg Regional Hospital, and that was a there was chaos in there, and you could hear the policeman walking up and down the hall. Hey, you got what you wanted, huh? You got what you wanted, huh?
Mm-mm-mm.
I mean, kids line off on the hall waiting for a doctor to see them.
So
And
a hallway full of bloody,
yeah,
bullet riddled kids, and the
and then
police,
you walking up and
police
down
is taunting y'all.
taunting us. Hey, you got what you wanted. Got what you wanted. And you know, it took all you wanted to keep them jumping up there and beat them, you know. And so finally, everybody treated. And that's when you found out that three kids were dead. And when we got back on the campus that night, I mean, it was just like a graveyard. I mean, everything was just so solemn. The girls' dorms, the girls were just sitting out on the steps. And that Friday morning,
This is after you all left the hospital. Is that correct?
this
Okay.
after that hospital. And
And let the audience know, not to cut you off, that this bullet to this day, 54 years later, is still in your body. Is that correct?
yes, they made a determination that night that would have done more harm than try to take the bullet out there and just leaving it there. So
Okay.
it's been there. It's been there
54 years.
54 years.
54 years next month. Yeah. So go tell us how we get from that point to you being mayor. How did that happen? Like you went on, you graduated from South Carolina State, and how did you get to being mayor of the same town that or the around the same city? Because Hollywood is close to Charleston, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how do you go from being shot on, at your very own campus to turning around and being mayor of such a segregated city?
Well, when I moved back home, um, when I graduated, I taught school away from home for 1 year. Then I moved back. During this time, I was an angry black man,
Yeah.
and even my mother, she feared for me because she said, Herbert, you just want to have to learn to get along with white people. I said, yeah, I might have to get along with it, but I'd have to like,
And anybody would be angry if you're beaten and shot by white police officers. That you would carry that anger with you for a long time after that.
Yeah, I mean, we can tell the emotion that he still feels, and I feel it, and so I can only imagine how he feels. That'll never go away, and the fact that it's lost history, like
That's right.
that's an emotion by itself on top of the story.
Mhm.
as the years went on, I got married and started having kids, and we started doing things in the community. My wife and I, along with other civic, minded people in the community, and integration started to happen, and this kind of thing. So that separate but equal thing sounded better to me than integration. I'm telling you. But integration was what it was. So I knew that in order to get things done to my people, I had to work within the system. And I had to work with white people. And so, I started try to form some alliances. And but I just couldn't pretend. I just couldn't pretend that I could forget about the things that they had done to us. And when I was in college, I read the history of Malcolm X.
Autobiography of Malcolm X.
Autobiography of Malcolm X.
Yeah, everyone should read it.
And I think that made me, well, you weren't angry young man back then. So I was carrying all that stuff, with me, in me. And so 1983, the Hollywood Town Council thing started to appeal to me. So I just started to run. And what happened, I filed too late, so I had to run as a write-in candidate. And that's when I got my real got my feet wet, because I had to teach those people how to spell my name. And it had a lot of black people, a lot of uneducated people, that some people couldn't write their own names.
Right.
And I had to get them to the point where they could at least write my name enough so that it won't be challenged.
Because Hollywood being a small, rural, poor community, education was always kind of denied to us in Hollywood.
Okay.
Especially those people that were going to vote, just for the older people. The young people, they didn't vote that. You had to work on them a lot. You vote now, son. But back in those days, it was basically older people that voted. But they voted, to the machine and just, did a number. But there was a white lady who was the mayor. And her and I just couldn't agree on her approach to doing things. She wanted to use weak-minded black people to do her dirty work in a black community. And I just got fed up with it. So in 1989, I decided to run for mayor.
So you win in 1983 as a
I won in 83.
write-in candidate, and I want the audience to know just how rare such an event is, that a write-in candidate wins an election, and being a first-time candidate, that he was able to do that.
I think that was the first time, and the only time there's been a write-in candidate in the town of Hollywood.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever been done before.
Okay.
But
So from mayor in 1989, he went on to hold that office for 14 more years.
Yes, ma'am. And the thing is, like I said, this lady, I ousted her in 1989, and I was in a bad dilemma. I knew that we needed water and sewer in the town of Hollywood, but then I knew that the town of Hollywood, that area, was the area that was open to growth, and water and sewer is going to bring a lot of growth, and it's going to bring expensive growth. I'm talking about wealth
To a very
poor
rural black community that necessarily could not afford to be gentrified.
And you know what happens then? When you got that kind of, when you start having big money coming out to small communities, small poor communities, And so I was caught up in a situation where I knew that we had to have one or two for the health of our people. And at the same time,
So, but before you, there are no water and sewer services in Hollywood,
no,
which makes Hollywood basically in the Stone Ages in 1989 when he gets into office, no water sewer
no
services.
water sewer.
Wow.
And basically, people couldn't, black people especially couldn't use the property because it took so much property to put in a septic tank. In other words, it took almost a acre of property to build a house because it took too much property to put in sewer lines.
And it was not not unusual to see people hand pumping water from wells in the middle of the yard in 1989.
So Shanti, tell us quick because we're getting close to that hour, and we gonna definitely have to have Mr. Gaston come back and tell his whole story again. Tell us quick how if everyone wants to hear the whole story in totality, they can get your book, put the book up so everyone can get that.
This is the life story, Hallelujah in Hollywood, a true Hollywood story. The life story of not only my father, but my mother, Linda Gadson, who in 1972 becomes the first African-American woman to graduate from the College of Charleston. The College of Charleston is the oldest municipal college in the country.
Yeah.
And it is the oldest college in the South. So 1972, Linda Gadson, my mother, becomes the first African-American woman to graduate from the College of Charleston. This book is their life. This book is their life story. So
And tell us, so we have your father's story, your mother's story. Tell us tell us about your mother's oil, tie in your sister and the connection with Vice President Kamala Harris. And please let everyone know your phone number, your emails, and all of your handles so they can continue on with this story. Wish we had so much more time tonight because it was amazing lost history, and we will be sharing this everywhere. But tie in really quick those other 3 points we want to make.
This oil was invented by my mother, Linda Gadson, in 1986. Since that time, it's called Big Mama Mama and Me oil, named after her grandmother and her mother, she being the third generation, the Big Mama Mama and Me. Invented in 1986 by her, it stopped everything from eczema to diaper rash to breast cancer. And actually, if the viewers want to go on YouTube and see the CBS story, the local CBS affiliate here in Charleston produced a story about the women who used it for their breast cancer on YouTube. The video is entitled Hallelujah Oil Halts Breast Cancer. It was called Hallelujah Oil before it was renamed Big Mama Mama and Me. But I want to encourage everyone, please get vaccinated for COVID-19, please. If in the event you do get COVID though, this has effectively treated COVID-19 symptoms. So the phone number is 843-518-8459. On social media everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Shati Gadson, if you want to get in touch with me. The email is gatsonshati@AOL. And also mayorboy1911@gmail.
Okay, and we also want to make sure that we mention the fact that we are educating, empowering, and encouraging our audience and all people and people everywhere, special people of color during
And
Black History Month. And please let us know how are you trying? Our theme this year is I'm trying. Could you just leave us some words about how you're trying around this product and this story for our audience?
well, I think the biggest component of the story, as far as I'm trying goes, we want to let each and every person under the sound of our voices know, understand, and realize that you may have setbacks in life. You may, like my father, get beaten by the police. You may get shot by the police, like my mother. You may experience racial discrimination, misogyny, in an attempt to try to get an education or trying to achieve a dream. But you continue to push forward. You continue to do the best that you possibly can. You continue to keep God first, and you continue to try.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll make sure that we have you guys back on. We're going to cover the Divine Nine and welcome you all to Charlotte in June and have a show centered around the conclave and how everyone can get and be a part of that coming up in June. We'll make sure we have you both back. So if you want to reach me in the spotlight with Tabitha, my number is 980-907-3136. You can reach me by email at tabithaspotlight@gmail. And I just want to close tonight. And we thank you both for being on and being a part of In the Spotlight. And I just want to close with this quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, where he says, "It is not possible to be in favor of justice for some people and not to be favor of justice for all people." And that is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you so much, Mayor Gadson and Shanti, for joining us
Thank
on
you.
this evening and
And
In the
Tabitha,
Spotlight.
I just want to also mention on YouTube, if you want to see my sister applying Big Mama Mama and Me Too, Vice President Kamala Harris, the YouTube video is VP Harris has Big Mama Mama Me oil applied to her on YouTube. If you want to see this being applied to Vice President Harris.
And you heard it first, audience. And thank you so much for joining us in the Spotlight. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.